Some families don't break you with fists, they break you with one cold sentence. A mother can scream, "You have 48 hours to get your stuff out." That house is your sister's now, and in that moment the child who carried the bills, saved the home, and sacrificed the most gets erased like they never mattered. The worst part isn't losing a place to sleep. It's watching your own parents wipe out your worth and hand everything to someone who never lifted a finger. Before we dive into today's story, let us know where you're tuning in from. It's always amazing to see where our stories travel. Don't forget to subscribe, so you won't miss the next twist in this journey. Now, I'd like you to hear what he's been carrying in his heart. My name is Caius Mercer. I'm 30, work in software, and for the last 5 years I've been living with my parents in Savannah, Georgia. It's the kind of town where everyone waves from their porch, where the Spanish moss sways over cracked sidewalks, and where the houses, especially ours, seem to breathe with memory. Ours is a pale yellow 2-story with chipped shutters and a wide front porch shaded by a gnarled old oak. I thought it'd always be mine, not because anyone ever promised it would be, but because I saved it. I repaired it. I kept it from falling apart when nobody else could or would. And I believed stupidly that counted for something. This house was never just 4 walls to me. I patched the roof during a storm season when the contractor bailed. I repainted the living room myself, even learned to rewire the kitchen outlets. Every paycheck, every overtime shift went into keeping it alive and to making it better. It was my proof, my grounding, my quiet way of saying I'm not worthless. But that night at dinner, something in that house shifted. My mother, Patricia, placed her fork down with just enough force that it clanged against the plate. She looked up, cold and final. "You have 48 hours to get your stuff out," she said loud and sharp. "The house is Vespers now." I stared at her. Not because I didn't understand the words, I did. I just didn't think she'd say them to me like that. So blunt, so transactional. Across from her, my father Dean didn't even look up. He just kept chewing. I don't know if that was easier for him, or if his silence was how he agreed. Either way, it felt like betrayal, with a napkin folded neatly on his lap. And Vesper. Her seat at the table was empty. She wasn't even in the state. She hadn't lived here in years. But they'd already decided. Her absence didn't matter. My presence didn't either. I didn't ask questions. I didn't plead. I didn't remind them of what I'd done. That would have been me feeding them more power, begging for what I'd already earned. I pushed back my chair, cleared my plate, and walked to my room like a guest who knew he'd overstayed. Not slamming doors, not throwing words, just walking away with everything boiling inside and nothing on the surface. I opened my laptop before I even changed clothes. Created a folder, mortgage/repairs/receipts. Subfolders for everything. Mortgage payments, home repairs, emails with the bank. Then I walked through the house room by room, mentally separating what belonged to the family and what belonged to me. The flat-screen TV, mine. The washer I bought last year, mine. The couch I saved 3 months for, mine. I jotted down the date and time of my mother's ultimatum. Her exact words, her tone. I even noted my father's lack of response. But the part that cut deepest came later, around midnight. I walked out for water and caught my mother on the phone in the living room. Her voice had softened. It was a voice she never used with me. I only caught fragments. "Don't worry about anything," she said. "Just fly in. Everything's handled. You don't have to tell him anything." She wasn't planning a conversation. She was orchestrating a transition, one I was never meant to be part of. I went back to my room and sat in the dark. I didn't leave that night in panic. I didn't cry. I didn't pack in chaos. I stayed. I planned. I moved in silence. Because when someone gives you 48 hours to disappear, you don't waste a second arguing. You prepare to make them wish they'd never tried to erase you. 5 years ago, this house was days from being taken. The kitchen table had become a war zone of unopened bills and threatening letters. My father had just been laid off. My mother kept pacing between the stove and the window like moving would somehow keep the walls from caving in. I still remember the look on my dad's face, tired, sunken, like he was halfway out the door already. The mortgage had defaulted. We were behind by months. Foreclosure letters came twice a week. And there I was, newly promoted, a few thousand in savings, still figuring out how taxes worked, stepping up not because anyone asked, but because I couldn't stomach the thought of losing everything. So I paid. First 1 month, then another, then all of it. 80 grand, give or take, over 3 years. Out of pocket, while still covering my own student loans and building a resume. I didn't tell anyone at work. I just picked up extra projects, ate instant noodles for lunch, and watched as my bank account drained in exchange for a roof that wasn't even legally mine. But it wasn't about the paperwork. Not back then. It was the house I grew up in, the creaky stairs I used to slide down, the porch swing I helped repair with my grandfather, the place I swore I'd protect even when everything else felt like it was falling apart. I made it livable again, repainted the walls, fixed the pipes, replaced the warped floorboards, bought a new washer when the old one smoked out mid-cycle, even hung new curtains navy blue to match the sofa. Vesper didn't call during those years, maybe once or twice. I'd text her updates, fixed the roof finally, or painted the kitchen, and she'd reply with a thumbs up or not at all. Once I mentioned the mortgage stress and she joked, "Well, you did choose to live there." Our parents didn't hold that same detachment, at least not out loud. They'd smile when I handed over money to cover bills. When Dad's car battery died again, I footed the repairs. When Mom said we were short on groceries, I'd Venmo her without hesitation. That's what family does, right? But something started to shift. The tone of their calls with Vesper grew warmer, longer. Dad would bring up her latest marketing campaign like he was reading from a proud parent script. "Your sister's really doing well out there." But he never said anything like that about me, even when I quietly kept this whole damn house from crumbling. Every once in a while, I'd ask gently why my name wasn't added to anything official. Just a precaution, I'd say. Legal peace of mind. Mom would wave me off like I was being dramatic. No need to complicate things, she'd say. So I let it go. Again and again. Until the night she told me to leave. That night, after I started collecting my files, I dug deeper into the drawer near the stove, the one where my parents kept random keys and outdated warranties. Beneath expired coupons and dusty paperwork, I found a creased envelope. Thick paper. County seal. I didn't open it. Not right away. But I saw enough through the slip of the fold to recognize it a copy of my grandfather's estate documents. The envelope had been opened before. Folded in half, and the section with the designated heir was carefully hidden. I stared at it, pulse rising. That envelope hadn't been forgotten. It had been buried. I took photos, front and back, then slid it back where I found it. That night I called Rowan Fitch. Rowan's the kind of friend you don't need many of in life. Smart, blunt, and loyal in a way that doesn't ask for credit. We'd met in undergrad, stayed close through relocations and breakups, and she became a lawyer, while I became the guy who silently held up his family's roof. She listened without interrupting as I recounted dinner. Mom's voice, Dad's silence. Vesper's looming return. Then she asked calmly, "Do you have any paperwork? Anything from your grandfather or showing ownership?" I told her about the envelope, about the repairs, the payments, everything. She paused. "Let me check something." We hung up. I stared at the ceiling, counting the slow, quiet seconds. Rowan's text came an hour later, and it changed everything. "If I'm right, they didn't just kick you out. They've been hiding your inheritance for years." The morning after that dinner, the house looked the same but didn't feel the same. The oak tree still cast its usual shadow on the porch, and the light still filtered through the blinds just so. But the warmth was gone. The familiarity that once wrapped around me like a second skin had turned cold hollow. This wasn't home anymore. It was a trap I'd been sleeping in with my eyes closed. I moved quietly. Didn't ask my mother anything. Didn't challenge my father. I sat through their silent breakfast with the same blank expression they wore. Mom poured her coffee like she hadn't just exiled her son the night before. Dad read the news, or pretended to. The air was thick with pretense, and I let them keep it. I wasn't going to give them a single reaction to twist against me. I watched, listened, memorized, Mom was on the phone again before lunch, her tone smooth and curated. She initiated the call this time. I could tell by the rhythm. Her voice shifted halfway through the conversation, softening in a way it never did for me. She laughed once. Then, "Of course, sweetheart. You just come home. Don't worry about him." She wasn't negotiating. She was scripting a scene. And Vesper. She was already part of it. The way my mother paused to listen, the way she reassured this had been in motion far longer than 48 hours. That's when Rowan called back. She didn't waste time on pleasantries. Her voice was tight with purpose. "There is a will," she said. "It's legitimate. Signed, notarized, filed with the county clerk. Your grandfather left the house to you. Sole beneficiary. Dated 2 months before he passed." I sat down hard, not because I lost my balance, but because the weight of it knocked the wind out of me. My ears rang. My heart beat in slow, angry thuds. I couldn't speak, couldn't think. Just stared straight ahead at the wall I had repainted with my own hands. So that's why she always brushed off paperwork talk. Why my father ducked his eyes when I mentioned legal protections. They knew. They had known. And they let me pour thousands of dollars, years of my life, into saving a house they were quietly planning to hand over to someone else. It wasn't just betrayal. It was strategy. They had watched me work late hours, watched me fix water damage and crawl under the porch in storm season. And they said nothing. Because as long as I kept believing this house was still ours, I'd keep footing the bill. Keep bailing the water out of a boat they planned to push me off the moment it was dry. This wasn't emotional. This was calculated. I felt sick. Rowan walked me through the next steps, her tone steady like an anchor. She'd begin drafting a legal claim to enforce the will. I needed to gather everything: payment records, receipts, evidence of repair. She'd help file for injunctive relief if they tried to sell, transfer, or occupy the house under false ownership. I opened a new spreadsheet and got to work. Itemized every dollar I had put into the house, $79,462 across mortgage payments, $3,200 in repairs, $1,050 in furniture, and another $600 in appliances. I marked each with dates, amounts, payment methods. I found photos of the living room before and after I painted it. Emails to contractors. Order confirmations. Then came the physical prep. I walked through the house with a clipboard labeling what was mine: the navy sofa, the Samsung washer, the curtains in the guest room, the microwave I bought last Christmas when the old one sparked out. I snapped photos of everything in place, documented condition, location, origin. Then, I booked a moving company, Low Country Rapid Movers. Rush order. Same-day dispatch. I explained the situation plainly. I needed a legal receipt, clear labeling, no drama. They agreed. I paid in advance and requested the invoice specify customer-owned personal property relocation. I wasn't leaving a mess behind. I was leaving proof. By nightfall, I'd packed half the living room and marked every box. I didn't sleep. I lay on the floor of my near-empty bedroom, the ceiling fan spinning in slow circles above me. And just before I drifted off, I heard it. Mom again on the phone. "Just walk in like it's your house," she said. "He'll be gone by then." But something shifted in her voice after that. Not panic, just urgency. Vesper had changed her flight. She was coming earlier. Not 2 days from now. Tomorrow. I sat up. They thought they were speeding up the handoff. They didn't realize I was already building the counterstrike. The next morning, the house felt even more surreal. Savannah was wrapped in a slow, misty dampness that made everything seem quieter than usual. But inside, it was colder than the weather. Not physically, but emotionally. Still, everyone acted like we were the same old family. Mom brewed her coffee like it was any other Thursday. Dad scrolled the news on his tablet. I poured myself a glass of water, nodded once, and sat in silence. They didn't mention last night, and I didn't give them the satisfaction of bringing it up. Rowan had been clear: stay strategic. We agreed on core rules: no confrontation until filings were in. No outbursts they could weaponize. Every key message now would be written, time-stamped, and devoid of emotion. I switched all essential conversations to text or email and let the paper trail protect me. I spent the rest of the morning building my arsenal data. 5 years of sacrifice plotted out month by month. Mortgage payments, amounts, dates, bank statements attached. Repair projects, receipts, before and after photos, tracking numbers. I created folders labeled Home Investment, Financial Personal Property Proof, and Grandfather's Will Evidence. As I exported invoices from my inbox, I stumbled on one email I hadn't seen in years, sent from a real estate insurance company. Subject line: policy update / ownership interest. Addressed to my mother. The message wasn't long, but one phrase jumped out and slapped me awake. Beneficiary transition documents. I stared at the screen. It was dated just weeks after my grandfather passed. So they did receive notice. She knew. Not just through assumption or gossip, but officially. She had read the same truth Rowan just confirmed: the house was mine. And instead of acknowledging it, she buried it under polite lies and cherry pie. I forwarded it to Rowan with the subject: proof of knowledge. Then I got back to work. I made a detailed inventory of everything I had bought: model numbers, store receipts, delivery confirmations. I attached photos of the items still in place: sofa, TV, washing machine, all tagged discreetly personal property. I made it clear I wasn't stripping the house. I left behind the antique sideboard my grandfather built, the family table with initials carved beneath. I wasn't here to erase legacy. I was here to preserve truth. By 11 a.m., Low Country Rapid Movers arrived. 2 guys in navy polos, polite but efficient. I met them on the porch and walked them through the plan. I need a clean record of what's moved, clear language, customer-owned, nothing communal. They nodded. They wrapped the furniture, loaded the boxes, and documented every piece. I paid by card and requested a second receipt emailed directly to me. At one point, while I was hauling a box of tools, I heard a soft knock on the screen door. Mrs. Jean Holloway, our next-door neighbor for 20 years, stood there with a gentle frown. "Morning, Caius," she said, eyeing the cardboard fortress behind me. "You okay, honey?" I paused, unsure how to answer. "Just some last-minute packing," I said. She looked past me into the house, her eyes scanning the hollowed-out living room. "Looks like more than that. I saw you patch that porch 3 summers ago. Knew it was you who fixed the siding. And I always noticed how clean your trash bins were, thought. That boy still takes pride in things." My throat tightened. She patted my arm. "I don't know what's going on, but I know who's been keeping that house upright. That matters. Don't let anyone tell you different." And just like that, I had a witness. Unprompted. Honest. Tangible. Later that evening, Rowan messaged again. "Update: Vesper lands around noon tomorrow. Tomorrow, not the weekend. Not in 48 hours. She'd be walking in while my boxes were still warm, while the floor still remembered my footsteps. I didn't flinch. I didn't panic. I just moved faster. By midnight, everything that was mine would be gone, but the paper trail that was staying, and no one, not my mother, not my father, not Vesper, would be able to pretend I had never been there. By midday, the sun over Savannah was cutting sharp through the windows, casting everything in this house into bold relief. The place felt like it was holding its breath. I didn't waste time reminiscing. I moved like a man on assignment, methodical, silent, precise. No second thoughts, no emotion, only execution. The moving truck arrived right on time. 3 guys, all in navy work shirts, stepped out and waited on my instructions. I handed them a printed list already marked with items by room and a column labeled "Owned by Client." "Stick to the list. Nothing more, nothing less," I said. They nodded and got to work. Every piece removed was first photographed in place, time-stamped by my phone. I snapped shots of the TV mounted on the wall before they unbolted it. Same with the sofa, the washer, the microwave, even the damn curtain rods. I had documentation down to the screw. The house was being stripped clean of my life, and yet I wasn't sad. I felt righteous. Each empty spot wasn't a loss. It was reclamation. I wasn't vandalizing this place. I was carving my name off the things they tried to steal. Once everything was packed into the truck, I followed them to the storage unit I'd rented 30 minutes out, a climate-controlled place tucked off a highway exit. I signed the rental papers. The key stayed on my chain. Only me and Rowan had the location. Back at the house, I stood in the living room staring at the pale imprint where the couch had once rested. That imprint was all that remained of my presence. But it was also proof this house didn't look like a family home anymore. It looked like a shell. And they were going to walk into that shell and realize how hollow their plan had become. My phone buzzed. It was my mother. "Where are you?" she barked the second I answered. "Don't get cute with this. You have 48 hours, not 48 games." I let the silence settle before I answered. "I'm removing my personal belongings." "Don't play semantics with me, Caius. You don't get to throw a tantrum and empty the house like some spoiled brat." "I have receipts," I said flatly. "I'm taking what belongs to me." She hesitated for just a beat. Then came the threat. "If you remove one thing that isn't yours, we will call the police." I hung up without another word. Within the hour, Rowan sent over a draft letter prepped and ready a legal notice affirming I was collecting personal property only, and any disputes regarding ownership would be resolved through probate. He also arranged for my sworn affidavit to be notarized first thing in the morning. Everything I had contributed, every payment, every upgrade would be on record. Later that afternoon, while the movers loaded the last of my things into storage, Mr. Clyde Benton, our longtime neighbor, walked over from across the street. He looked at the house, then at the nearly empty driveway. "Didn't think I'd see this day," he murmured. "Your grandfather told me once you were the one keeping this place going. Said that boy's the one holding the house together." His words hit different. They landed somewhere deeper than my spine. I didn't respond, just nodded. Back inside, my phone lit up again. This time it was a text. From Vesper. "I'm arriving tomorrow, don't make a scene. Mom said you'll be gone by then." My throat tightened, not because of the arrogance in her tone that was expected, but because it confirmed what I had suspected: they were all in this together. Later that night, another knock came at my door. It was my father. He stood there for a moment, staring past me into the dimly lit room. "Don't do anything you'll regret," he said quietly. I tilted my head. "Like what, taking back what's mine?" He shook his head. "This house is about family. Don't ruin it." I could have laughed, but I didn't. Instead, I just said, "I understand." He waited a beat, hoping I'd elaborate. I didn't. That night, I made a final sweep. The big items were gone. Everything left behind was furniture they could spin as theirs. Let them. What mattered was no longer here. It was packed, recorded, secured, and waiting. And so was I. The house was silent when I woke up. My parents had left early, some vague excuse about visiting friends. They were clearing the stage, leaving me and Vesper alone for the curtain rise. I spent the morning locking every variable into place. I filmed the house room by room, each shot slow and deliberate. The living room empty. No sofa, no TV. Kitchen clean, nothing in the microwave slot. The laundry room, no machines. I captured the condition of the walls, the floors, the outlets. No damage, just absence. I photographed the water and electric meters, took note of the thermostat, snapped the locks and windows. Everything intact, everything timed and dated. Then I printed out the list of personal items I'd removed, each with a photo and proof of purchase. At exactly 12:47 p.m., her Uber pulled into the driveway. Vesper stepped out dragging a designer suitcase and talking on the phone. She didn't even glance toward the house like a stranger might. She walked in like she owned it. I stood by the doorway, arms folded. She pushed the door open, stepped inside and stopped. 5 seconds of silence. Then, "What the hell is this?" She walked further in, looking around like she couldn't believe her eyes. "Where's the couch, the TV? Why is everything gone?" I stayed still. They were mine, so I took them. "You're being petty," she hissed. "This isn't how adults handle things." "I'm handling it exactly how adults do, with receipts." She stormed into the kitchen, opening cabinets, then stomped to the laundry area. "Where the hell is the washer? You stripped this place." "No," I said. "I stripped away what you thought you could inherit without cost." She spun to face me, eyes sharp. You have no right. Mom said this house is mine. I finally let the hammer drop. She lied. Grandpa left it to me. There's a will, signed, notarized, filed. I found it, and I'm executing it. For the first time, her mouth stayed shut. Her expression cracked like a windshield hit dead center. Then she pulled out her phone and dialed. Mom. He says there's a will. Everything's gone. The house is empty. You told me it was mine. What's going on? I let her panic. I didn't interrupt. I didn't need to. While she was still on the phone, my own buzzed. Rowan. Documents filed. Claim is live. Court acknowledgement came through. We're filing a motion to freeze any transfers until it's resolved. They won't be able to do anything rash. I texted back, one word received. Vesper was pacing now, whispering into the phone, her voice cracking. He has a lawyer. He filed something. Why didn't you tell me this was possible? I stepped outside to the porch, leaned against the railing, and let the sun hit my face. Minutes later, the door slammed behind her. She was gone. I walked back into the house, now empty in every sense. My phone was vibrating. Calls from Mom, from Dad, from Vesper. I didn't answer. I stood there still, just breathing. They gave me 48 hours to disappear, but now they were the ones running out of time. I left before they got home. No note, no confrontation, no sound but the low hum of my car pulling away from the curb. In the back seat, my laptop bag and a sealed envelope of documents shifted slightly as I turned onto Whitaker Street. I didn't look in the rearview mirror. I knew what I was leaving behind. Rowan's apartment downtown felt like a war room, cold, bright, surgical. The kind of place where emotions had no voice and everything that mattered lived on paper. His kitchen counter was buried in folders, tabs, sticky notes, 2 mugs of coffee, one stale, one untouched, and a laptop with an open spreadsheet that looked like a forensic map of my life. I changed the Wi-Fi password, Rowan said, not looking up, just in case. I nodded and silenced my phone. Turned off location sharing. Logged out of every account my family might still have access to. This was no longer about pride or pain. It was protection. Rowan handed me a 1-page summary draft mortgage contribution dates itemized list of what I removed from the house with receipts and a clean breakdown of the will's execution timeline. It felt sterile on the page. It wasn't. It was the story of what I built and what they tried to take. The first call came at 6:14 p.m. I didn't answer. Then another 6:15. Then 3 more in a row. Mom's name lighting up the screen, alternating with Dad's, then a number labeled home. Rowan tilted his head toward the phone and murmured, "Let them talk. People show their hand when they think they're still playing a game." The first voicemail was chaos in a bottle. "Caius, what the hell did you do? Vesper's in tears, the house is empty, you took everything like a thief." Then a beat of silence. "What are you doing?" she said, softer now. "This isn't you. You're better than this. You're tearing this family apart. Not one word about the will. Not one word about what they'd done. Just theatrics." The second voicemail cut deeper. Son Dad's voice lower, more controlled, but shaking beneath it. "There's some guy outside. Says he owns the house. What is this? What's going on? You sold the damn place, I didn't move." Rowan leaned over and tapped a folder. They didn't see it coming. "The new deed is recorded. County confirmed. They can't scream it back into existence." The buyer, Caleb Strickland, wasn't some stranger off Craigslist. He was a local developer, vetted and ready. Rowan had him on standby the moment the will was filed. It wasn't revenge. It was strategy. It was leverage. It was me taking back control. I finally picked up the phone when Mom called again at 7:03. I didn't let her speak first. "I'm not coming back," I said. "Not to clean up, not to explain. It's done." Silence. Then her voice brittle. "You're out of your mind. We did everything for this family and you. You hid the will," I said quietly. "You gave Vesper the house. You shouted a deadline, 48 hours. Remember, you're twisting. No. I cut in flat. You made sure this family didn't include me. So don't expect me to keep acting like it does." I hung up before she could reply. Dad tried next. "We need to talk," he said. "You've put us in a terrible position." "You put yourself there," I said. "Talk to Rowan if you have questions." "I'm done playing interpreter." Then came the flood of guilt, the desperation stage. "You've humiliated us," Mom cried in the final voicemail. "You're making a scene in front of the whole neighborhood. Everyone's talking. I didn't yell. I didn't gloat. I said one thing and only once. I'm not here to fix what you broke anymore." Then I turned the phone face down and let it ring. Rowan stayed silent for a while, watching me from across the kitchen. When he finally spoke, it was with the same calm precision he'd used from day one. "They'll try one last time. Sooner or later, they'll either show their real face or try to rewrite the story with you as the villain. We lock this down before they get the chance." And that was it. The storm wasn't coming anymore. It was here. And I wasn't afraid. Months passed. Savannah moved on, and so did I. The air still carried that briny weight from the river, the sidewalks still sweated under the southern sun, but everything else in my life had shifted. I rented a one-bedroom just a few blocks from the square, a small place with creaky floors and a balcony that caught the morning light just right. No one else paid the bills here. No one else held the key. In the mornings, I brewed coffee and opened the window above the sink, letting the breeze carry in a piece of the world that wasn't soaked in guilt or obligation. I passed the same shops, nodded to the same street musicians, but I walked lighter now, freed from the leash of being the family's fixer. Rowan and I tied off every loose thread. The probate court upheld the will without challenge. My financial contribution to the house was documented, verified, and closed. The deed transfer was finalized. The sale to Caleb held firm. There was no back door for my parents to crawl through, no loophole to pull the rug out again. I archived everything: scans of the will, signed affidavits, videos of the empty house receipts, voice recordings. All of it sealed in a folder labeled not with rage, but with proof. Then came the ripple effects. My parents moved out quietly, their pride bleeding down the front steps. The neighborhood noticed. Mr. Benton had questions. So did Mrs. Jean. And though they were never asked to take sides, their silence toward my parents in the weeks after said enough. The mask had slipped, and some stains don't wash out. Vesper flew back to California without a key, without a house, without her prize. She didn't reach out again, not directly. But through a friend of a friend, I heard the new version. I just did what Mom told me. A deflection disguised as innocence. She never once apologized. She just disappeared. Then came the envelope. No return address. Inside, a folded letter in my mother's handwriting. "Caius, I've been thinking. We should talk. We're still family. Maybe we could work something out. Maybe there's a way to share. Your father isn't well. We're not getting younger." I held it in my hands for a full minute before I put it down. Rowan read it, then looked up with a dry smile. "That's not an apology. That's bait." He was right. It was the same old cycle dressed in softer words. So I ended it. I wrote one final message, short and clean. "The matter is resolved. I will not revisit it. Please respect my boundaries. Any further communication must go through legal counsel." Then I blocked the number, not in anger, in peace. Because I finally understood sometimes the only way to heal is to stop hoping broken people will do right by you if you just love them hard enough. I didn't lose a home. I lost the illusion that I ever had a place in theirs. And that grief was quieter, but it was real. But here's what I gained: my time, my dignity, my autonomy. I no longer begged to be included. I no longer bartered with my self-worth. I wasn't their fixer anymore. I was my own. I set up the same sofa in my new living room, the same TV, the same coffee table. They used to be trophies of sacrifice. Now they were just furniture mine. I took a walk that evening through the trees lining Oglethorpe. The light filtered through the Spanish moss in that soft, familiar way. But this time there was no weight on my chest. No deadline hanging over my head. No one waiting at home to use my love against me. Just me and the life I built with my own two hands, finally mine to keep. I used to think loyalty meant never walking away. That if you loved someone, really loved them, you stayed. You gave. You fixed what broke. You made yourself smaller, quieter, more forgiving until the people you cared about finally saw your worth. But that's not love. That's survival disguised as devotion. What I went through with my family taught me something I wish I'd learned sooner. Love without respect will starve you. And loyalty without boundaries will bury you. I don't regret standing up for myself. I regret all the years I didn't. There's a kind of mourning that comes when you stop being the person everyone relies on to keep the peace. It's quiet and strange, like walking through an old house and realizing none of the pictures on the wall are really yours. But on the other side of that grief is clarity and freedom. I stopped showing up where I wasn't valued. I stopped explaining my heart to people committed to misunderstanding it. And I started building a life where I didn't need to prove I deserved a place at the table. I built my own table. The truth is, family doesn't give you the right to rewrite someone's future. No matter how much history you share, no one gets to treat your life like it's theirs to claim. So if you're carrying the weight of being the responsible one, the one who keeps it all together, I want you to hear this. You are allowed to walk away. You are allowed to protect your peace. You are allowed to choose a version of love that doesn't cost you everything. And maybe, just maybe, that's where real healing begins. When you stop performing loyalty for people who never earned it, and start practicing it with yourself. We've reached the end of this story, but not the end of what it leaves behind. When everything quiets down, what stays with us isn't the argument, the paperwork, or even the loss itself. It's the moment we realize how fragile trust can be, and how strong a person has to become when the place that was supposed to feel safest no longer does. Sometimes the hardest part isn't letting go of a house or a name, but letting go of the version of family we hoped would one day understand us. What this story asks us to sit with is not who was right or wrong. It's something gentler and heavier. How much of ourselves we give before we notice we're running empty. How we learn slowly and painfully that kindness doesn't mean self-erasure, and that setting a boundary doesn't cancel love. We don't all walk away from the same things, but we all know what it feels like to carry more than our share, and to wonder when it's finally okay to set it down. If this story stirred something in you, you're not alone. This space exists for listening, for sharing, for the quiet relief of knowing someone else has felt a similar weight. If you'd like to stay with us, you're welcome to subscribe and be part of this small community where stories are told gently and received with care. And if you want to, you can leave a few lines in the comments about what stayed with you or a moment in your own life that this brought to mind. No pressure, just a place to speak if you feel like it. Thank you for sitting with us until the end. Take care of yourself wherever you are, and I hope we meet again right here in the next story.